Welcome. With this milestone of the Business Proposal Project, we will be taking a look at the research methodology that will help uncover if there is a correlation between athletics in impoverished high schools and their pathway to post-secondary educational opportunities. I think one of the most efficient ways to introduce my plan of action is to read the introductory letter that will be distributed to all prospective participants prior to them completing the survey. This one is sent to a hypothetical Mr. Smith. Dear Mr. Smith, I am reaching out to you for your participation in a research study examining the likelihood of high school students from impoverished communities who attended a post-secondary institution. Your responses are important in enabling me to obtain a better understanding of the social issue and could help benefit a wide range of children moving forward. I want to ensure you that participation is completely voluntary, and if you do decide to participate, your responses will remain completely confidential. If you would like to help me out, you can locate the survey at surveyplanet.com. The answers from your survey will be recorded through the Survey Planet server and then distributed to me through a share file. I will be using all of the data collected to help my colleagues and myself at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Waterbury in Connecticut to determine whether or not there is justification to add high school level athletics at our location to further our mission of sending our members to college. I truly appreciate your time, and if you do decide to participate, I hope you find it enjoyable. If you have any questions pertaining to the survey or the results that we discover, please do not hesitate to contact me at my email. Once again, thank you for all of your help. Devin Bertrand. This research project will utilize a quantitative research method to measure both the perception of respondents who see post-secondary education as important and offer statistical validation that participating in high school athletics increases the likelihood of pursuing a post-secondary degree. As I look to uncover the relationship between high school athletes and their likelihood of attending a post-secondary school, I plan to use an online-based survey to gather primary data from my sample population. In order for my sample population to gain a better understanding behind the purpose of the study and where to physically locate it, I will send the introductory letter which you saw on the first slide. As we discuss how I designed my survey, I think it is important to look at the actual questions that I used. The first types of questions are open response questions, simply asking what city and state they grew up in and the name of the high school they attended. As I look to gradually get more in depth with my questioning, I moved to multiple choice questions such as name the sports you played in high school and what years did you do so. From those general questions, I could easily differentiate between athlete and non-athlete respondents. As I attempted to understand their perception about high school athletics and if they felt they were a springboard for their future, I implemented 9 questions that were used to gauge their views on various topics. Some of these views were along the lines of, I believe that my coaches and teachers stressed the importance of going to college, and I believe that high school sports pushed me to attend college. Their responses were on a rating scale and had 6 possible answers ranging from strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, somewhat agree, and strongly agree. If you would like to see the full list of survey questions, please feel free to look at my survey from the link provided at the bottom of the slide. To ensure protection of human subjects, it is important to remember that throughout the survey there are not any questions asking the respondents to provide personal identification information. The most direct question asked is what town they live in and what high school they went to. Based on the sample population, which covers multiple towns and multiple high schools, the identification of all participants remains anonymous to the researcher as well as the reported results. With the use of technology, there is always the chance of personal information being stored, but it is communicated to the participants in the introductory letter that all information collected will remain confidential. During the reporting process, only general statistics will be published instead of individual answers. Due to time and financial restraints, I feel that it would be efficient to narrow down my sample to respondents from select high schools in the state of Connecticut. With that being said, 7 cities in Connecticut have greater than 20% of their total population below the poverty line. If you could remember from my Milestone 1 project, I decided to use that statistic to determine which cities and towns are truly impoverished. Of those 7 cities, 5 of them have populations big enough to have their own public school system. I then use those 5 cities to randomly select 1 to 3 high schools from each, dependent on their population. I made the conscious decision to survey all 3 of the Waterbury high schools based on the notion that I believe those statistics will be most beneficial to the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Waterbury. As we move along, you will get to see how I truly defined who my sample populations will be. As I mentioned before, in terms of what locations I was going to research, I felt that based on financial resources and the probability of getting participants, I was going to focus on Connecticut high schools in cities where more than 20% of the population was below poverty threshold. If the town or city had multiple high schools, then I randomly selected which ones I was going to ask to participate to generate a smaller sample population. I am going to distribute letters to graduates from the selected high schools from the years 2012, 2010, and 2008 so that I receive data from 3 different classes. I also chose these years because if the participants decided to attend college, they are more likely to be home by now rather than still away at school. I am going to need the assistance from the high schools generating a list of graduates, athletes and non-athletes, with their last addresses on file to mail them an introductory letter. Prior to the administration of the survey to my sample population, I sent a primary copy of it to the 2012 graduate from Bassick High School in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I wanted to test the validity and reliability of the questions asked in my survey. I concluded that in my preliminary version of the survey, I did not put a non-applicable answer choice for the questions pertaining only to high school athletes, so the results were skewed slightly because the non-athletes who participated could not skip the question without providing an answer. As previously mentioned, I will be working closely with the selected high school's administration to develop a list of graduates from the 2012, 2010, and 2008 classes and their last reported address. I will then send them a personal letter explaining the purpose of the study and providing the URL to fill out the survey. The survey's results will be then collected on the Survey Planet server until I request a digital file of them. For the fairly simple quantitative data that this research project looks to obtain, using the SurveyPlanet.com server will be effective in collecting and exporting the received responses. One of the best features about using this website is their ability to place numerical values with the answer description so that the readouts are already coded and easier to work with. This website has the ability to export the results in Word, Excel, CSV, and JSON files for further examination or print out hard copies of the reports. As it pertains to answering the research questions, I will be able to use the Excel file to process the statistics that will ultimately answer whether there is a likelihood of high school athletes attending college and their perceptions on the matter. It is inevitable that I will have to go through and examine the data closely in order to identify improper data that could alter my results. Once the data is clean, I will be able to use the analytical processors that Excel offers and validate the hypothesis that I have developed. In terms of missing data, I predict that I will have trouble generating responses from participants outside of Waterbury. The recipients of letters from the other 4 cities do not have a true connection to help the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Waterbury, and without incentive, I am assuming that the response numbers will be low. I also believe that the utilization of a physical mailed letter instead of an email will also result in lower responses. I decided to use the physical mail addresses because the high schools are more likely to have that information on file than an email address in which a person might not even check frequently. If a survey is marked having unanswered questions, then I will make sure that that survey is removed before any analysis takes place. In my survey, because there are questions that only pertain to previous high school athletes, it is important to remember that participation is encouraged by both athletes and non-athletes, but to separate those responses when comparing their perceptions of going to college. I am expecting to see my hypothesis validated in terms that high school athletes from impoverished cities are more likely to attend a post-secondary school than a non-athlete from the same area. I am also anticipating that high school athletes received more encouragement and positive influence to pursue a college degree based on their athletic status. If these predictions are accurate, then there will be sufficient justification for adding competitive high school level sports teams to our curriculum at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Waterbury. I want to thank everyone for watching this presentation and hope that I can receive some form of constructive feedback to benefit my final project moving forward. Thank you.